So welcome, everyone, and certainly we appreciate having an opportunity to share a little bit of time with you today. The topic is going to be Ignition IoT, implementing an end-to-end IoT solution for your enterprise. We have a release we want to share with you today that I think certainly we're very interested in it. We hope you'll be interested in it too. My name is Don Pearson. I work with Inductive Automation and have for the last 11 years now, I guess. The years keep going by, so we've been pretty active in this area. I want to say that for today, I just want to comment that we're going to be talking a little bit about a new infrastructure, a new architecture. I mean, if you think about it, there's a lot of conversations here at the ARC Forum. It certainly started a couple of years ago. It's continuing to go on now about IoT. And our message basically is without the right architecture in place, industrial organizations won't be able to really get the benefits from IoT. A lot of them are going to end up disillusioned. There's going to be IoT implementations that don't meet their expectations and not get implemented in the right way, et cetera. So today we're going to tell you about an end-to-end IoT solution that enterprises will be able to use to really get the benefits of IoT. I already introduced myself. I'm joined by Arlen Nipper, who's president of Cirrus Link Solutions, and Arlen has 38 plus years of SCADA experience, including complete SCADA system infrastructure implementations for Fortune 100 oil and gas companies. He's also the co-inventor of MQTT message transport in conjunction with IBM. He's really helped make MQTT a leading IoT protocol, and I think it's feel comfortable in saying he's an expert on that subject. And also Travis Cox, who is a co-director of sales engineering, but he's been with Inductive Automation since the very beginning. In fact, he was involved in establishing our training department, our support department, our sales engineering department now, and design services. So he's here with us and has been really contributed greatly to the growth over the years of our company. Just a snapshot. For those of you who aren't familiar with Inductive Automation, we've been around for 14 years. We don't have any outside investors. We're doing business now with 44 of Fortune 100 companies in some form of implementation and growing there, somewhere around 26% of Fortune 500. We're doing installations in 100 plus countries, and 1,450 integrators are on our integrator program as part of our go-to-market strategy. Our signature product is Ignition by Inductive Automation. It was released in 2010. It really is, as it says on the screen here, the first database-centric cross-platform web-deployed industrial application platform for your HMI, SCADA, MES, and IoT solutions. As just bullet points on it, one slide of bullet points on the platform. It's got an unlimited pricing model. It's cross-platform compatibility, IT standard technologies at its base, scalable server-client architecture, web-based and web-managed, web launch it on a desktop or mobile. It's modular configurability, and it is extremely rapid development and deployment tools. The topic today, though, is IoT, and I want to talk a little bit about that. I mentioned before there's a lot of hype around IoT. And I think probably if this year, we're just setting up booths now, but if it's like it was last year here, there's probably going to be IoT on most of the backdrops of most of the booths somewhere in some form out there. There's lots of partnerships and standards groups. We've become involved in one ourselves, but you see a lot of alliances in the talk about it world. And I think what we wanted to sort of point out today is sometimes you get the question of where is it actually heading if you're trying to get to an implementation. Where do I start? How do I begin? How does this journey work for me and my organization? So what we want to do is try and work towards how do you cut through the hype and how do you get industrial organizations a starting point? And we actually think that a new architecture is what it takes. If you think about conventional system architectures, and you look at what's on the board here, you're talking about applications that interact with a device. And the applications and devices are coupled, which creates a lot of problems. It can create security problems, it can create network resource problems, documentation, maintainability, creates redundancies, and really it's kind of an arcane mishmash architecture that doesn't scale. It certainly messes with your bandwidth consumption, and it's really got a lot of difficulty if you're trying to maintain it. But it actually has been the mindset for 40 years that you've been connecting intelligent devices on the one hand over to some sort of application on the other hand, and you use your pull response protocols and you get data. And you usually solve a problem on day one that works out just fine. But on day two, someone gets the idea that they would like another application. They want more data. They want different data. And you find out that you had a whole lot of fixed data sets that were all programmed in on day one. And now you got to do something different for day two, so you draw another line over there. And then on day three and day four, and pretty soon you're building this unbelievable mishmash architecture that simply results in an unworkable scalability. Now, you can do a couple of things. You can continue to do that, or you can decide that you don't need that data that badly, you're not going to get that data, and that's how really 90% of data gets stranded in plant floors in the field, because you really can't easily get at it. So what we're talking about actually is taking a look at it differently with a new architecture, where the first and foremost component of the architecture is you have to decouple your applications from your devices. And device data is published, and it's published by exception to an MQTT broker in the middle. It can be in the cloud, it can be on-premise, it can be hybrid. And the MQTT, which is a publish, subscribe protocol, very lightweight, it's bidirectional, and enables message-oriented middleware architecture, which you see diagrammed here. It also provides stateful awareness, which basically means you obviously know the state of the network connection at all times, which is it's pretty vital in the industrial setting that you have stateful awareness. So this architecture, frankly, provides better security, better network utilization, a whole host of other benefits. So if you look at that also, I think when you look at this architecture, it's also a way that you can really realize the promise of IoT with this decoupled architecture and ignition for IoT. So you end up able to deliver an actual IoT solution, and it's based on open standards, it's proven in the real world, and frankly, we promote often this is IoT and it's delivered now. And you're going to see a little more about that now. We want to basically get our message out to end users so they get on some sort of a migration strategy to this new architecture. In addition to that, we want to take it all the way to the edge of the network so OEMs can also get involved. But you need to do a few things to do that. In order to get the new architecture, you need to have a solution that can be deployed at the edge. And that's because that's where the data is coming from. And the polling needs to be as close to the device as possible rather than polling from SCADA. You need to migrate legacy infrastructure to MQTT. And you need an end-to-end solution for IoT. It has to be plug and play. And last but not least, it's got to be affordable. I mean, if you're talking about, which we are here, hundreds of thousands of sensors and thousands of PLCs, piece of equipment, edge devices, if you don't have a pricing model that scales like that, we frankly feel that the unlimited pricing model of Ignition is the only way you could possibly do it, because you can't pay for that connectivity. All of those projects are going to end up stuck in some CFO's pending basket. They'll never see the light of day. So I think it's really important when you think about that. Now, it's granted, I might be slightly biased since I'm with inductive automation, but Ignition actually is that superior operational technology solution. It's faster exponentially, it's more cost effective than other SCADA systems, and it's necessary because we do not believe that any IoT solution is going to succeed if it doesn't meet the needs of your operations people. At the end of the day, operations is where it should be. It should be from a ground up solution, from OT to IT, not IT down. So many IT solutions where conventional wisdom might say, well, do IT. IT does enterprise solutions. It should be IT driving this. But IT gets down to these thousands of devices and protocols and all the variety of what's needed in 40-year-old equipment. And good luck having IT from top down solve an operational problem that's going to build an enterprise, and all the data is down there at the bottom that needs to get up. So we really believe it needs to be from the ground up, operational technology up. It supports MQTT and also other open standards such as OPC UA. You know, it's been over a year now, I think, that we've seen a tremendous amount of activity now with companies such as the ones you see on the screen here, Advantech, B&B SmartWorks, along with Alexis and Hilscher, Magnetrol, Mox, Opto22. They've been embedding MQTT into their devices, and we believe there's just many, many more vendors to come as MQTT evolves. And last year, we sat in this room, we did a demo, we talked about MQTT modules, and I just want to reference that point because it builds us to today's release. We introduced 3 Cirrus Link MQTT modules for ignition: the MQTT distributor module, the MQTT engine module, and the MQTT transmission module. And all of those added IIoT functionality to Ignition's existing HMI SCADA functionality, which many of you are familiar with. They allowed Ignition to be able to set up this new architecture. But now we're going to take it a step further. I'm going to take it all the way to the edge of the network. By addressing the edge of the network, we can just take away one more obstacle for IIoT deployments by making IIoT a reality, and that is the new product release today, which is Ignition Edge. We're kind of excited about this. I'll try and stay real low-key. I know it's a press conference, so we have to be mannerly and stuff, but we're pretty excited about it. It's been in the works for a while here, and it's a new line of lightweight, limited, low-cost ignition products called Ignition Edge. There's 3 of them in this group of products: Ignition Edge Panel, Ignition Edge Enterprise, and Ignition Edge MQTT by Cirrus Link Solutions. These products build on the MQTT modules that we released last year by extending the new architecture all the way to the edge of the network. They're engineered and priced for using at the edge of the network and are made to work in seamlessly with your centralized full ignition gateway. I think it's going to be, when we look at this and see what it is, and you'll have a chance to get a little more of an understanding of them here, they really share some powerful features and benefits that make them just pretty ideal for edge of network. That you access data from PLCs and OPC UA servers. They come with 500 tags, equipped with OPC UA along with the Modbus, Siemens, Allen Bradley suite of drivers, so you can have a pretty easy PLC connection. If you need other drivers that are supported by Ignition, you can get the DMP3, Omron. We have other drivers in our driver offerings too, available to add on to Ignition Edge for additional cost to the product. That's a basic starting point. Some other features: they work seamlessly with Ignition. They install on edge of network devices. Using Ignition and Ignition Edge together, you'll be able to build a scalable enterprise-wide system. Also, they're totally cross-platform, obviously working on Windows and OS X, Linux, and more. Install them virtually, I think virtually on any industrial device. They have support for ARM processors to run on the latest generation of edge network devices. So you can sort of run, the edge panel, the enterprise or MQTT, just on a single device, or mix and match them and do whatever you want to really tailor to your needs and kind of build out the kind of activity, the kind of architecture that you need and you want. And it's also set up from a pricing model to allow bulk pricing, because we envision that what's going to happen is this is going to be something that is very much available to people who want to do broad deployments. But to talk more about the Ignition Edge panel, I'm going to actually turn it over to Travis Cox.
All right. As Don said, there's 3 Ignition Edge products, one of which is the Ignition Edge panel. And this allows you to create local HMIs for field devices. It enables edge-of-network HMI functionality with robust Ignition features, including 1 local web client, 1 remote web client, alarming features with one-way email notification, and includes 1 week of data buffering for trending that is viewable locally, as well as with that 1 remote client. And it's they're also available for fallback in mission-critical applications. If you look at a couple of architectures or options, first is a simple standalone HMI. The product can be used as standalone, connecting to one or more devices or PLCs, and you can have that one local and one remote ignition or client there at the edge. Now, a lot of people or customers will deploy it with a central ignition server as well. When you do that, you typically, your central SCADA system is what you're going to be launching around the plant or remote sites. But if you lose communication to that central system at a remote location, you now have the ability to have a local fallback to be able to see the information there from the PLCs. Not only look at it for real-time status control, but again, get that 1 week of local data buffering for trending, and also do local one-way email alarming in the event of you losing communication to a central server. The next product is Ignition Edge Enterprise, and this acts as a limited remote server that synchronizes data from the edge of the network to a centralized Ignition server. It has powerful features such as distributed tags, distributed history, remote alarming, and more built into it. It also has features for remote backup, restoration management, centralized monitoring of performance and health metrics, when you combine that with central Ignition servers. Again, it comes up with 1 week the data buffering, so it can be used for store and forwarding to a centralized system. So if you look at a couple of diagrams here, architecture diagrams, this is a pretty common architecture where you have a lot of remote locations. We call this a hub and spoke, and it's much more realized with the Ignition Edge product. So you can have lots of remote locations connecting to their local PLCs, and not only, well, in this case, they'll have that 1 week data buffering, and they'll be able to send the information back up to a centralized Ignition server or database so that we can have data stored from all of our locations. And in the event of communication loss to the central system, those Ignition Edge products will cache data locally and then forward it up when the communication is restored. So keeping it very simple, guarantee you don't lose that historical data at the edge. Now, when you couple that with the Ignition panel that I just talked about, now you have, you bring the two together, the power of both of them. Not only are you not losing data, you have a local client in the event of communication loss as well. That is, so we can see the process as well as view that local history without having to have any databases configured there at the edge. So now to tell you about the third product for Ignition Edge, Edge MQTT. Here's the co-inventor of MQTT, Arlen Nipper.
Thanks, Travis, Don. So first thing I'd like to say here is how excited I am to be able to take the capabilities of what we've all learned that we can do in Ignition and be able to move that to edge of network devices. You know, really extending the power of what we can do with Ignition platform down to edge devices and sensors in the field or on the plant floor is really going to be a disruptive approach to how we put together industrial network architectures. Like Don said, you know, I went to work for Amoco in 1978, and the way that I put my first SCADA system together in 1978 and the way that we do them now really hasn't changed that much. So this is going to be a really disruptive notion, I think, in the industry. And for the last 20 years, I've been doing MQTT infrastructures. I started with, when we invented MQTT was with Phillips 66. But what I've seen, and we're starting to see it more and more, is that people really do want to modernize their infrastructures, but they want to know where to start. How do I start? What can I put together? How can I start migrating into a new infrastructure architecture? And the Ignition Edge product line is going to give you the capability to start implementing a true industrial Internet of Things architecture. Ignition at the Edge provides a common set of tools and technologies across the HMI SCADA platform to the edge of network. This will increase the integrator's capability for OT requirements, meeting IIoT functionality, which is in heavy demand. Until now, there's been a disconnect between the technologies used for HMI SCADA platforms and the disparate legacy protocols that we used in the field. With Ignition Edge, information from intelligent operational equipment can not only provide mission-critical real-time information for OT, we've got to satisfy that, like Don was saying, but then opens up all that wealth of information for other information that's stored in our edge of network devices, PLCs, smart transmitters, gas chromatographs, machine controllers, and other devices out there. Edge lets us migrate to the point where devices become the root authority or the single source of truth on tag information. So human tag editing can become a thing of the past. We've seen that time and time again. In the migration to a new infrastructure, you spend so much time re-editing and confirming your tags. With Edge, now the tag is the root authority of where that data information came from. So we can finally stop talking about how to adopt IoT and just get on with doing it. The Ignition Edge was developed by Cirrus. We're a third-party strategic partner with Inductive Automation. Edge enables the publication of field device data through MQTT. It does this by turning virtually any field device, such as a touch panel, a client terminal, into a lightweight MQTT-enabled edge of network gateway that works seamlessly with Ignition IoT. Edge uses the highly efficient MQTT protocol to publish data to any MQTT broker, such as the Chariot MQTT broker and Ignition's MQTT distributor module. Edge MQT supports Sparkplug data encoded specification. And I will announce, there's one other announcement here this morning, is that we are releasing Sparkplug B, which is an MQTT encoding specification that goes along with the Ignition Edge products that lets us do complex data types like data sets, UDTs, and other complex tags types that we couldn't support in Sparkplug A. So with that, we can start putting together infrastructures like this where we have all of our Ignition Edge products, all three of them out, polling locally, using their native OPC, Modbus, or Allen Bradley, or Siemens protocol, then taking all of that tag information they're bringing in, publishing it into a central set of brokers and or brokers, and then that coming into the MQTT engine module in an Ignition Gateway platform. But the key point here is all of that data sitting in those MQTT brokers is accessible to all of the other enterprise applications out there. And in this example, we showed just adding a local panel out in the field. So now not only do you have that capability, you've got local viewing capabilities as well. So that's the summary of MQTT Edge, and with that, I'll turn it back to Don.
Thanks, Roland. So with the time every meeting, I just want to make a couple of just closing comments, and then we'll just open it up for the last couple of minutes with Q&A. I just want to emphasize 5 things that came up in this thing that are really important in terms of I'd like them as a takeaway. One is it's about decoupling devices. If we're really talking about summarizing this new infrastructure with Ignition Edge, it's decoupling devices from applications. You stop connecting devices to applications with protocols, instead connect devices to infrastructure so that basically you can bring the data in, published by exception. It's there for who needs it. They can subscribe to it. They get it as they need it. The second thing I think that is important is it has to provide a superior OT solution. Replacing brownfield SCADA systems, come on, how long is it going to take? I mean, we're talking equipment's been out there a long time. It's really nice to have a greenfield world, but we don't live in a greenfield world. We live in a brownfield world, and it costs millions and millions. Hard to justify incremental changes, so you need to have a superior operational technology that makes it something that brings value all in and of itself before you layer on all the value that comes with the IIoT enterprise connectivity of all that data and the analytics that comes with it. Arlen mentioned there needs to be a single source of truth. You know, I mean, Modbus was released in 1978, still the dominant SCADA protocol. People edit every tag, as you mentioned, pulled by Modbus. If you convert one SCADA system to another, they all end up getting edited. We really think that this solution will save thousands, if not tens of thousands of hours. There's some people could spend their innovative, intelligent time better than editing tags for a living. And we find people would like to do something different with their skills. Plug and play. has to be plug and play. In 2017, we're still implementing SCADA systems that, tediously describing, configuring devices, protocols, registers. With IoT, devices and sensors should be able to dynamically join the overall infrastructure and provide a plug and play OT functionality. So I think that's critical. And last, I want to just say the last one I'd say, eliminating cutovers. I mean, there's a whole big session. We were talking about it with Craig over lunch today about all this stuff about downtime. What about cutovers just in oil and gas? Most SCADA systems have to be deployed in one fell swoop. They bring current poll response application down. They bring the new version up. And if it doesn't work, we were at an operations center with you up in Canada last June where they had a cutover that didn't work. Man, was that expensive. Back to square one, redo it, and re-go back into test mode. You should be able to run an OT application in parallel with real data, so you've got it running in parallel, test mode, no cutover time whatsoever. That's another promise of IoT. Cutovers, gone, thing of the past. Huge benefits from all of this as we look at Ignition Edge and where it's going. So with Ignition Edge, we're saying enterprises are now going to be able to realize the power of their data, and they'll get it today. It's also built on the unlimited licensing model of Ignition, so you've got unlimited possibilities. That's the scalability component in terms of the economics, and it gives companies more data they need to make smarter decisions. The Ignition Edge product will be released March 28th with a release webinar, which is how we usually do all of our releases, so you can get details at that time. It'll be available on our website to purchase at that time. And once it's when it's released, you'll be able to do what you do always with Ignition. You can download it for free, play around with it, start using it right away in trial mode, and just like Ignition, you can start developing easily and rapidly with Ignition Edge also. I want to just say one thing in closing, because we always go up to the final time when you're grabbing me and telling me, get out the hook, all that stuff, the prod, the cattle prod. Every year this happens, so. Apologize again this year, but we decided to take a little solution to that if questions don't get answered today. So here in this ballroom, actually this ballroom and this wall will come down, tomorrow morning at 7 a.m., we're going to have a breakfast buffet, a little country breakfast if you're hungry. We'll be able to show you, because we had to rush today, but tomorrow we'll be able to demo IoT, elaborate on what we just talked about. Also, you can visit us at booth 23, go to inductiveautomation.com/IoT. But tomorrow's when we're going to have time, because as always, we like to demo. We don't just like to talk, we like to show. So tomorrow we're going to show. So Arlen, Travis, and I will be here tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. You're all invited. We do have information sheets. Christine, hold up your hand in the back, because if I get kicked out, at least you can get Edge information sheet if you want it. And with that, I will take one short question. No time for one question. So we will hang around on your 5-minute break and answer questions, but that's another reason to come tomorrow morning and have breakfast with us. Thank you.